Okay, so I actually dug a little bit deeper on that MAGA citizen who went to Ireland. If you haven't seen my video yet, I released it yesterday or the day before. But I'll leave a link in the description below in case you haven't seen my video yet of this woman being a victim. But I found a video online from an Irish citizen living in London, and I 100% agree with his take on it. Now, he's speaking from the point of view of Ireland, but I think it applies to every country in the world. I also found another video from another Canadian, and it sounds like she's been doing a lot of traveling a lot and has met US citizens just like I have. But unfortunately, her story, along with what I've said in my previous video, kind of shows what US citizens are going to have to do if they want to travel abroad. Also, to close off this video, I have a clip from a US citizen, and she talks about how she spoke to her grandparents when she was younger, and she asked her great-grandparents how Germany was just before World War II started, and the similarities that her great-grandparents told her to what's happening today is pretty close. So we'll get into that video as well. Okay, before we get started, I just want to show you one video that comes out of the United States. So if anybody is thinking about doing transits through the United States or going to the United States, you might have to deal with something like this.
Now entire airports are saying, you guys figure it out. Because people who are going to the airport for their flights are walking into a complete nightmare. Lines are so bad, it's not just inside of the airport you're having to wait in line, you're having to wait all the way out in the parking garage. There's so many people that honestly when I saw this parking garage at this airport, I was thinking, okay, who's the celebrity that all these people are waiting to spot in the parking garage? But this is the actual waiting lines. You're talking running late for your flight nightmares. That's what this is made of. You're like, man, the ground floor is so congested. Nope, it's every single floor in the airport. Why are lines this bad? Because you can't get through airport security right now because TSA agents are not showing up for work. Why?
You know, with everything going on right now, I totally forgot that the government in the United States is half shut down right now. Now, in normal times, this would be huge news, but we're living in a screwed up timeline right now. And this one doesn't even make the radar anymore.
Because they aren't getting paid. So all of airport security people are just not coming in for work right now because they aren't getting a paycheck. This isn't just today. We're talking ever since Monday. It started with 2-hour wait lines. Now airports are basically telling people good luck.
We had missed both our flights. We were waiting in TSA just to get to security for 4 hours.
Seriously, what are these airports doing to make this better? They are telling passengers that you need to be at the airport 3 hours early to even stand a chance of catching your flight.
I don't know about you, but it looks like you'd have to be there more than 3 hours before your flight. But I know the GTL community is not going to the United States, so we don't have to worry about this. But if you do know anybody still going, or if you know anybody that still has a stopover or a layover in the United States, you might want to show this to them. Now, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Waiting for the Mothership, who posted this on the Guard the Leaf community page on the Hey Cafe website. And the backdrop was taken at Waterton Lakes National Park in Alberta. So thank you, Waiting for the Mothership, for posting it in the Guard the Leaf community page. And to be honest, I think posting it on the community page is way better than sending me an email, because everybody else can see your photos as well. Okay, let's get started with the Irish citizen living in London, and he gives his perspective on that MAGA who played the victim in his country.
That thing about the American woman who came to a pub in Cushendall and was met with hostility when she refused to discuss who she voted for in the American election, I find it really interesting. Because that woman and a lot of Americans, I think, have this idea that they're entitled to travel and not be met with these political discussions because they're irrelevant or it's rude to discuss them. But what they don't appreciate is that people in Europe, people in Ireland, for instance, have to deal with the direct consequences of the American election.
Now, I feel this guy is speaking for the world, because it's not just Ireland that has to deal with, the orange mess. It's the entire world. So if you're living outside the United States, I think you can relate to what he's saying.
But they don't get a vote. So when you travel outside your borders, you go to a place like Ireland, and you meet people who didn't have a say, but are having to deal with the consequences of things like tariffs, things like Palestine, the Russia-Ukraine war, and sort of oil prices because of Iran, and even not being able to fly across the Middle East currently. All of these chaotic things that could have been avoided. I think we're going to see it more and more that American tourists, when they travel outside of the US, are going to have to reckon with it a lot more than they used to, because the politics really affect everyone, not just them. and they're kind of going to be held to account a bit.
Now, I want to talk about this accountability thing because I received an email after my last video, and it was from a US citizen who did not vote for the orange guy. Now, I'm not going to show the email because I respect everybody's privacy. Even if they hate my videos and whatever else, I'm still not going to dox anybody. But this person wrote in their email that they think it's unfair that US citizens, when they're traveling abroad, even if they didn't vote for the orange guy, now have to be careful or justify and explain who they actually voted for. Now, I don't think this person was angry at me, more like the situation. But if I'm talking about the situation, it is unfortunate that the United States brand, the people, and anything tied to it, whether you're on the left or right, is still going to be attached to the orange guy. And citizens around the world are going to want answers. They're going to want to know whether or not you're part of the problem or if you're not. Now, I don't know how to fix this. I mean, I'm also glad I'm not a US citizen. But this is not going to be fixed overnight. Because I know for a fact, if I use me as an example, if I'm traveling and I'm 80 years old and I'm in my retirement, and if I meet a US citizen, I'm still going to be thinking, hey, this person that I just met from the US, were they part of the problem in 2026? It's unfortunate that this whole situation is something that many people will never forget. Like I said in my previous video, the opening line for many US citizens traveling abroad is probably going to have to be, hey, how's it going? No, I didn't vote for that guy. It's happened to me a few times in the past. But once I found out that this person did not vote for the orange guy, everything was fine. So to the person who emailed me, I trust that it wasn't directed at me. But the anger that you had in your email, it should be directed at your fellow citizens, not the rest of the world. Now, I want to show another video from another Canadian, and she gives her point of view on the whole situation. Now, I'm showing these to you because sometimes I can't get it out of my head and what I want to say onto the mic. I'm not the best at explaining things. But some of these videos that I'm showing you, oh my gosh, shh, no. Some of these videos that I'm showing you can explain it a lot better than I can. Let's take a look.
Accused of being a bad person because you're from the United States.
It doesn't surprise me, but it still blows my mind how Americans, specifically MAGA Americans, travel around the world without doing any historical research, any political research. And they just assume that everyone's just so excited for them to be there. Girl, unless you were in a specifically unionist, anti-immigration, hateful little pocket of Northern Ireland, maybe somewhere small in East Belfast, they're not going to like a Trump supporter.
I think that applies to a lot of places around the world. But if you ask me, and this is just my opinion, maybe I am right, maybe I'm wrong. But this stems from the fact that many MAGA think that the rest of the world loves them because they're the best country in the world. But I'm not going to lie. Every time these kind of scenarios happen, and they're going to happen again, it does make me happy to see that they're getting hit with a daily dose of reality.
I feel like that's common knowledge. I went to Ireland last year, said my vows there. And without fail, anytime that we talked to an Irish person, and mind you, we weren't in the north, they'd ask us. They'd kind of get a bit closed off and ask us where we're from. And then when we'd say Canada, they would just breathe a sigh of relief and be like, fuck that Trump guy. I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. And most Americans, because we were in the height of the annexation conversation, with Trump threatening us, most Americans would apologize to us immediately. If we were on a tour or something like that, and we're going around saying where we're from, and we'd say Canada, and the next person would be like, oh, America, we're so sorry, we're so sorry. And then the tensions are amongst the group of people or the room that we were in would sort of settle. But
Now, I do know I have a lot of US viewers, and unfortunately, this is the new reality for you guys. But I've been in this scenario as well, where I met US citizens, and the second that they told me, no, I didn't vote for the guy and I despise him, like she said, the tension in the room lifts, and it's just a relief, to be honest. And to change the situation around, I've been asked if I was a US citizen, and there's usually always a little bit of animosity or looking down. And the second I say I'm Canadian, it's like a wave of just phew, thank God, just went over them. So unfortunately for my US viewers, this is the new reality. But to resolve the situation, you just got to declare what side you're on.
it didn't always happen. There were times when we'd say we're from Canada, and the next person would be like, we're from Texas, we're from the United States. And they didn't say anything. And then everybody in the room, Irish people included, would be like, that's awkward. You're not going to say anything. about it, you're fine with that. You're fine with invading their country. And you're really in the comments being like, trying to act like you didn't vote for Donald Trump. And then posting shit like this, and then traveling to Northern Ireland is insane. You have to realize that that's crazy.
Well, MAGA's not very smart, so I'm not surprised at all. And to be honest, I'm just waiting for the next one to happen. So to my US viewers, I wouldn't be worried about traveling overseas, to be honest. But unfortunately, you do have to declare what your stance is. But I think if you declare that you didn't vote for the orange idiot, everything should be fine. Now, this next clip is actually on a totally different topic, and I think it serves as a good reminder of the direction that the United States is going. This woman here has a German background, and she asked her great-grandparents what it was like just before the World War II started. And what she was told, she compares it to what's happening today. So let me start this video for you.
We're at this point in history where we have to answer future generations why no one stopped them. And the funny thing is, I am the future generation from back when in Germany, because I'm a German living in the United States. And I was able to ask my great-grandparents who were alive during that time all the questions we will have to face and answer later on in life. So the question that I had for my grandpa was, hey, why did you vote for this? Why would you ever let a monster like this be in charge of a country? His answer was, we didn't know. We were so poor we could not afford food, which sounds very familiar, right? And he promised us and gave us hope that he will reduce the prices of eggs and bread. And just that gives me goosebumps when I think about that. I would ask other questions like, but what when you found out about the camps? Like, why did you not speak up then? And he said, first, we didn't believe the camps were a real thing. It sounded like a rumor. This was too inhumane to believe that this is the reality of what they were doing with human people.
Now, what mind boggles me is that we're in an age of information. We have the internet. We have all of the real-time data that we need. Some of it might be fake. Some of it might be like propaganda. But we have the information. And yeah, a couple generations from now are going to ask, what the hell? Why didn't you guys in 2026 do anything about this? I'm not saying we as Canadians. I'm actually targeting this at the United States. More specifically, the United States government. More specifically on the Democrats. Because in my opinion, after January 6th, there is no way in hell that the orange idiot should have been allowed to run for another term. It's going to be in textbooks all around the world, like 80, 90 years from now, that nothing was done on January 6th. Well, maybe not the US textbooks, but like everywhere else in the world.
There was no social media back then, so there was nothing that pointed on that this is the reality until it became reality. And also, the regime started to have their own police, which would go around and try to pick out the bad apples who was not trying to follow the rules and literally take them, kidnap them, or worse. So when I would ask my great-grandparents why they didn't stand up, they said, because we would have not made it out alive. And they always told me that they brought Jewish families that were in hiding food. And this was something, standing up, trying to help the people that the regime was against, made them an enemy as well. And they could have been executed in the middle of the street. And it's just, I remember this so vividly because I could not believe that anyone would ever let this happen. I also can't believe that me leaving Germany in 2021, coming to America, that history would repeat itself here as a German. And I see it with my own eyes. And we were wondering why we went through history class over and over again, talking about World War II. We were so tired of it because we could not, all we thought was like, that's not gonna happen. We learned from this. We understand. That's not even 100 years ago. And now we're here. And I can't believe it. But I'm just hoping that enough people will realize what's going on, speak up, stand up, and that we can just turn this ship around somehow. I mean, we can't change what already happened, but I just hope it's not going to get worse.
You know, the haters and the MAGA, they're going to see this and say, what? You're blowing this way out of proportion. And it's not even just the haters. It's the people that also say, well, you know what? Things are going to be better after 3 years. Or the US citizens who are way too apathetic about what's going on right now with their country. I mean, why is it that the international community, citizens around the world, care more about what's going on in the US versus some of their citizens? And just for the record, I care about the US, I do, because it's going to affect us. I mean, the clues are all there. The United States government and the right, they want to take over all the media. They want to take over all of North America. And if you asked me 6 months ago whether or not the midterms would actually happen, I would have said yes. But today, I'm not so confident on that anymore. So let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Do you think we're on the same path as what happened just before World War II? Let me know in the comments. All right, that's all I got for today's video. If you found any value or agreed with anything I said in this video, or you want to hear more from a Canadian and international perspective, without the US media bias, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button below. That way you're notified of my videos. And if you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that are going to show up on your screen shortly. Thanks everyone, I'll see you in the next one.